So, um, you know that feeling, right? That little gut punch you get when you're scrolling through your feed.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You see everyone else's highlight reel,
Hmm.
the perfect vacation, the effortless success, the seemingly flawless life. And you can't help but compare it to your own everyday reality.
Which rarely looks quite that shiny.
Exactly. Rarely looks that shiny and filtered. And there's this relentless, maybe unconscious pressure to measure up, to feel like your life somehow needs to look just as spectacular online. It's exhausting, isn't it?
It really is. It's draining.
This constant online comparison has become a really significant source of stress for so many people today. And that desire, that simple desire to just be ourselves online, without that pressure. It can feel like trying to escape some kind of like digital trap.
It absolutely can feel like a trap. And it's a feeling that's become incredibly common in our digitally saturated world. That feeling of being caught in the comparison cycle, the pressure to perform online, and the stress that comes with it.
Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today.
Right.
We've pulled together a stack of sources for this deep dive. Articles from psychological journals, research papers looking specifically at social media's impact, and reflections on personal growth and self-acceptance, too.
Okay, so our mission today is to really unpack this experience for you, the listener. We're not just going to talk about that gut feeling, that initial reaction.
No, we want to go deeper.
Yeah, we're going to explore why it happens, dig into the psychological stuff underneath that makes us vulnerable, and maybe most importantly, look at practical, actionable ways to navigate this whole digital landscape.
Right, the how-to.
We want to help you cultivate a stronger, more authentic sense of self, one that isn't so easily swayed or, diminished by the highlight reels scrolling by. Think of this deep dive as like your guide. Yeah, a guide to understanding the rules of this digital comparison game, maybe, and finding your authentic footing within it, both online and off.
Perfect. Okay, so let's start by really defining the core problem we're tackling today, this digital comparison trap.
Right. Because we all know social media platforms were built, initially anyway, with connection in mind. Sharing updates, staying in touch, finding information, even building communities.
And they are great tools for that. Undeniably.
Absolutely fantastic for all of that. But, and this is a big but our sources consistently highlight they are also increasingly reported as a major source of stress. And this seems particularly true for young adults.
The ones who've really grown up with this technology, just woven into everything, their social lives especially.
Exactly. It's just part of the fabric of their lives.
And the core reason for that stress, like we touched on, is that curated reality, isn't it?
That's the heart of it. What we see online, mostly, it's not the raw, unedited stream of someone's day-to-day life.
No way.
People are selecting, filtering, editing. They're presenting only the best moments. It's that vacation photo from the perfect angle, the perfect light.
Or the big achievement announced, the party that looks like nonstop fun. It's the highlight reel, basically. Carefully edited, maybe subtly enhanced.
Right. You rarely see the struggles behind the scenes.
Like the arguments before the perfect couple shot.
Exactly. Or the debt funding, the fancy trip, or the hours and hours of work and self-doubt that went into that achievement they're celebrating.
Or just the quiet nights staying in because plans fell through.
Yeah.
You don't post those usually.
No, online, we tend to put our best digital foot forward. That's the norm.
And while seeing beautiful images or positive updates, sure, it can be inspiring or nice in moderation.
Yeah.
But the constant, relentless exposure to only these curated highlights, that triggers something powerful in us.
Comparison. Conscious or unconscious.
Right. You're seeing someone else's peak moments, their most polished version, right next to your own unedited everyday reality.
Which has all the messy bits.
All the inevitable imperfections, the mundane stuff, the genuine struggles. Your life rarely looks like their carefully constructed highlight reel.
And that gap, that discrepancy, that's where the stress and the damage to self-esteem starts to creep in.
Yeah.
When you're constantly comparing your, let's say, messy reality to someone else's filtered fantasy, it's just incredibly easy to feel like you're not doing enough.
Or not achieving enough, not having enough fun.
Or just fundamentally not being enough. And this insidious comparison, it then fuels a whole other layer of anxiety. Overanalyzing your own online presence. You become hyper aware of what you post, how it might look to others.
You start counting likes, maybe worrying about comments.
Exactly. Agonizing over comments, feeling this immense pressure to appear just as perfect, just as happy, just as put together online as everyone else seems to be, regardless of how you're actually feeling inside.
So it becomes a performance.
Totally. A performance rather than authentic sharing.
Absolutely. It's like you get caught up in performing, constantly trying to curate your own highlight reel just to measure up to the ones you're seeing everywhere else.
Yeah.
And speaking of feeling like you're missing out or not enough, let's talk about FOMO.
FOMO, the fear of missing out?
Yeah. Our sources really highlight that social media is like FOMO's best friend and its worst enemy all at once.
That's a good way to put it. It keeps you connected, so you're aware of what everyone else is doing.
But it's also constantly shoving what you are missing out on right in your face.
It provides the visual proof, doesn't it? The irrefutable evidence. Seeing those photos of friends hanging out without you, seeing updates about parties you weren't invited to.
Seeing an ex moving on, looking happy.
Yeah. Social media gives you tangible, undeniable evidence of experiences, connections, life milestones that you are not part of. And this constant exposure to what you might be missing or what others have that you don't. Studies have explicitly linked that to problematic social media use and, well, poor mental well-being overall.
It just intensifies those feelings, right?
Yeah.
Loneliness, exclusion, inadequacy.
Absolutely. Those constant reminders can really amplify those negative feelings.
And you use a key term there, problematic social media use. How do our sources define that? It's not just about time spent, is it?
No, not solely time. It's defined more by when that use starts interfering with your everyday life and your ability to function.
Okay, like what?
Like being preoccupied with social media even when you're offline, thinking about it, wondering what's happening, or getting easily distracted from, your main tasks, your responsibilities by notifications, or just the urge to check your feed.
And maybe neglecting real life things.
Yes, actively neglecting real-life interactions, work, studies, other responsibilities in favor of being online. That's when it crosses the line into problematic use.
And is this common?
It's not a fringe issue, unfortunately.
Right.
Estimates cited in our sources suggest a pretty significant portion, around 17.4% of social media users, are affected by some form of problematic use.
Wow, nearly 1 in 5.
Yeah. And as you might expect, it's most prevalent among adolescents and young adults.
That makes sense, given how integrated it is in their social development, forming identity.
Exactly. And importantly, this problematic use is significantly associated with an increased risk of depression and anxiety. The excessive time online, often combined with that comparison and FOMO we talked about, can reduce time spent on things we know support mental health.
Like face-to-face time with friends, exercise, hobbies.
All those things, they get crowded out.
That's 17.4% statistic, affecting almost 1 in 5 users. That's pretty stark. It really underscores how widespread this issue is. But it's also crucial to note, right? Our sources are careful about this. The link between social media use and mental well-being isn't simple. It's not uniformly negative for everyone.
Exactly. It's not a straightforward cause and effect where social media is bad. The research evidence is actually quite conflicting, which reflects how complex human behavior and digital interaction really are.
So some studies do show benefits.
Oh, absolutely. Real, genuine benefits. Things like providing increased social support networks, especially for people who might be isolated offline, allowing people to strengthen bonds with friends and family over distances.
Or finding online communities for support on sensitive issues.
Yes, exactly. People seeking help and support for things they might not feel comfortable discussing face-to-face. These are real positives. They show the platform's capacity for good.
But then there's the other side.
Then there's that other significant body evidence linking high social media use, and particularly those problematic use patterns, to negative outcomes. Increased depression, anxiety, general psychological distress.
So how do we reconcile these conflicting findings?
Well, it highlights the complexity, doesn't it? It suggests it's not that social media is inherently good or bad. Its impact seems to depend heavily on how you use it.
Passive scrolling versus actively engaging, maybe?
That's one factor researchers look at, yeah. Passive scrolling versus active engagement, also how much you use it, and perhaps most crucially, individual factors. Things about the person themselves that make some people more vulnerable to the downsides than others.
Right. So it's about the patterns of use, the specific content you engage with, and the individual person navigating that digital space.
Precisely. Which brings us quite naturally to the why behind this vulnerability.
Right.
Why are some of us more susceptible to falling into this comparison trap and experiencing all the stress and negative mental health impacts?
What makes us vulnerable?
Our sources point to some fundamental psychological vulnerabilities. And there's a particular emphasis on the level of self-acceptance an individual possesses.
Self-acceptance. Okay, that feels foundational, like the bedrock of our ability to navigate this online world without getting crushed by it.
It really is foundational. Our sources define it clearly. Self-acceptance is recognizing and affirming your own intrinsic worth, your inherent abilities, and crucially, doing that irrespective of your imperfections, your flaws, your mistakes, or what other people think. External evaluations don't dictate it.
So it's like an unconditional approval of who you are, including all the messy bits.
Exactly. Accepting all aspects of yourself, the good, the bad, the awkward, the parts you don't love, without that constant, harsh inner critic tearing you down.
And psychologically, why is that so vital?
Well, it's not just a nice to have. It's absolutely vital for overall mental well-being, for resilience, for the capacity for genuine personal growth. The source is even connected to Carl Rogers' idea of unconditional positive regard.
But applied to yourself?
Yes, applied internally. Extending that same non-judgmental acceptance to yourself that, say, a good therapist or a supportive friend might offer. When you can offer yourself that level of kindness and acceptance, including your shadow sides, your perceived failings, it allows you to truly confront and integrate your authentic self.
Which reduces that internal conflict from trying to be someone you're not, especially online.
Precisely. It fosters authenticity.
That makes so much sense. If your self-worth is stable and comes from within through self-acceptance, you're less likely to be tossed around by likes, comments, or what others are posting online.
You're anchored internally.
But achieving that state, that unconditional self-acceptance, especially today, it feels incredibly challenging. What are the main barriers our sources identify? What makes it so hard, and how does the online world make it even harder?
Okay, one of the biggest, most pervasive barriers is the influence of societal and cultural norms and expectations.
The shoulds.
The shoulds, exactly. Society, through media, and now overwhelmingly through social media, imposes often unrealistic, often unattainable standards. Standards for beauty, for success, for behavior, for how our lives should look.
And social media just amplifies that.
Massively. It constantly showcases these highly curated portrayals of perfection across all these domains. It makes comparison not just possible, but almost unavoidable. You're just bombarded with images and stories of what the ideal looks like.
And if you feel you don't measure up,
it creates this powerful internal conflict, this feeling of falling short.
so you feel this intense pressure, look a certain way, achieve certain things by a certain age, present a specific online persona that fits these idealized norms. And social media doesn't just show you the standard, it shows you seemingly countless examples of people meeting it.
Which makes you feel like you're perpetually behind or lacking.
Exactly. And this external pressure, it feeds directly into another major internal barrier, the internal critic, that negative self-talk.
Ah, that voice inside.
That voice, often developed from past experiences, criticism, rejection, maybe chronic stress, it relentlessly perpetuates negative thoughts, judgments, beliefs about yourself. It finds fault, exaggerates mistakes, tells you you're not good enough.
It creates a cycle, right? Self-doubt, shame, a really debilitating cycle. And when you're already prone to that kind of negative self-talk, scrolling through those seemingly perfect highlight reels online, oh boy.
It gives the critic ammunition.
So much ammunition. It makes that inner critic absolutely roar. It finds instant proof for its negative statements and everyone else's seemingly better, happier, more successful lives online. It confirms your deepest fears about your own inadequacy.
Wow. So the digital comparison landscape basically fuels the internal critic.
Precisely. It pours fuel on that fire. And then there's the barrier of perfectionism.
Which isn't just about high standards.
No, it's more than that. It's a relentless, often paralyzing pursuit of flawlessness. The belief that anything less than perfect is unacceptable and reflects a fundamental failing in you.
And online, how does that manifest?
Oh, in such clear ways. It's the compulsion to curate the perfect feed, spending ages editing photos until they barely look real.
Agonizing over captions.
Yes, agonizing over the exact wording. Living in fear of any perceived failure or appearing imperfect to your online audience, your sense of self-worth gets completely tied up in external validation.
Likes, comments, shares, follower count.
All of it. You equate your fundamental human value with that external approval, which is not only fragile and dependent on others,
So it's a constantly moving target online.
totally volatile.
Okay.
So this perfectionist mindset, it directly blocks your ability to accept your real, messy, beautifully imperfect self, because you can never actually be perfect, right? So if your worth depends on achieving the impossible, you can never truly feel good enough or worthy of acceptance, either from yourself or others.
And one source also mentioned peer pressure, specifically in the digital realm, connecting to those societal barriers.
It did, yeah. Social media platforms amplify the pressure to conform, certain behaviors, trends, aesthetics, even opinions. Think about viral challenges, popular filters, specific ways of dressing or talking that become trendy. This pressure makes it incredibly difficult to be authentic online if your true self, your genuine interests, or your appearance don't quite fit those prevailing online norms.
So it creates a conflict
Yeah.
between who you are and who you feel you need to pretend to be online.
A significant conflict. And that just further erodes your sense of self and makes true self-acceptance a much tougher climb.
Okay, so the problem is clear: the stress, the comparison, the FOMO, the potential for problematic use stemming from these curated online worlds. And the reasons why we're vulnerable are deep-seated struggles with self-acceptance, amplified by the digital environment. That brings us to the crucial part. Strategies. How do we navigate this? How do we build resilience, escape the trap, foster that robust sense of self?
Okay, so our sources offer several powerful strategies, and they're really interconnected. The first, and arguably the most essential starting point for cultivating self-acceptance and navigating consciously, is developing self-awareness.
Self-awareness, not just the buzzword, but actually.
Actually taking an honest, non-judgmental look at your own thoughts, feelings, behaviors. Becoming an observer of your internal world.
So noticing what's really going on inside you when you're scrolling or posting, not just reacting automatically.
Exactly. Noticing the immediate reaction, the thoughts that bubble up. And that's where mindfulness comes in as a really practical technique.
Okay.
Mindfulness is just the practice of being present in the current moment without judgment. So when you're scrolling, instead of just getting lost in the feed, try practicing mindfulness. Simply notice how you feel when you see certain posts.
Like, does that picture trigger jealousy? Does that influencer make me feel bad about myself?
Precisely. How does scrolling for, say, 10 minutes or half an hour impact your mood overall? Does it leave you feeling energized or drained? Look for those patterns. And acknowledging those negative emotions, jealousy, sadness, anxiety, without immediately judging yourself for having them is so important.
Right, not beating yourself up for feeling jealous.
Exactly. It helps you process them without getting completely overwhelmed or swept away. You just notice. You don't have to immediately analyze or criticize.
Noticing without judgment. That sounds like it takes practice, but yeah, I can see how it breaks that automatic reaction chain.
Yeah.
And the sources offer some really concrete tools for building this self-awareness, especially journaling.
Yes. Journaling is highlighted as a fantastic, very accessible tool for self-awareness and reflection. It gives you that private space for an honest look inside without worrying about external eyes. And the sources have some really thought-provoking prompts to guide that inward look. Many are directly relevant here.
Yeah, I found some of those prompts incredibly insightful, like asking yourself, what gives me energy? What is exhausting me? That question just immediately makes you pause and think about how you're spending your time, who you're with, what activities, including online ones, truly nourish you versus what just drains you and maybe fuels negative feelings.
Right. Or prompts that help you differentiate between your observing self and your feeling or thinking self, encouraging self-compassion. Like, how does the self feel now? What would I tell myself as a good friend if they were feeling this way?
The good friend test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It encourages you to step back from the raw emotion and offer yourself the same kindness you'd readily give someone you care about.
That shift from self-criticism to self-compassion feels huge. Another prompt that really struck me was, what would I do for joy if no one was watching? How is that different from now?
Oh, that's a powerful one.
It gets right to the heart of external validation versus intrinsic joy, doesn't it? It makes you question if you're doing things you genuinely enjoy or if you're mainly driven by wanting likes, approval, validation from some imagined audience, which is a core issue in the comparison trap.
It forces you to question your motivations. Are you living authentically or are you performing? Other prompts push deeper. What's my motivation for doing enjoyable things or unenjoyable things? What does loving myself actually mean for me in practice? How does that affect how I treat others? What's the difference between my gut intuition and my rational thinking? These help you understand your internal guidance system better.
There was one that felt really challenging but necessary. What have I not been honest with myself about? And another, comparing where you are now versus where you thought you'd be and how that gap feels. These really push you to confront uncomfortable truths, acknowledge disappointment maybe, which is vital for self-acceptance.
They absolutely do. And there are also prompts for practical boundary setting. What are my non-negotiables, my boundaries, what activities, people, or online interactions make me feel uncomfortable or drained? And prompts to identify voids you might be trying to fill. What things am I doing or buying just to fill a gap? Linking purpose versus fleeting pleasure.
And there was one specific journaling exercise mentioned that seemed incredibly relevant to online comparison. Writing about your life first person, then trying to write about it third person like an acquaintance would see it.
Yes. That exercise is so insightful for combating the skewed perspective social media creates. When you write from your own POV, you include all the internal struggles, the self-doubt, the mundane bits you usually discount.
Right, the full, messy picture.
Then, when you try to write about it from an outsider's perspective, like the version they might see on a curated feed, or just based on surface interactions, you often realize, hey, I actually have a lot to be proud of. Many genuine connections, aspects of your life you might be undervaluing because they don't look like a perfect highlight reel. The source notes this can be a powerful reminder that your reality, though imperfect, has significant value. You're not as lacking as the comparison trap makes you feel. It helps you see your own life with more perspective, more appreciation.
That's a really practical way to use journaling to directly fight comparison.
Okay, so beyond journaling, another tool mentioned was tracking your social media use.
Absolutely. Using apps or even just a simple diary to track how you use social media, how much time, which platforms, when that's important. But the crucial part, according to the sources, is also tracking how you feel while you're using it and right after.
Connecting the usage to the feeling.
Yes. Gathering that data on the direct link between specific usage patterns and your emotions helps you identify triggers you might not be consciously aware of. Do certain accounts consistently make you feel bad? Do you feel worse after passively scrolling for 30 minutes versus actively messaging a friend? This data gives you objective clarity.
Which empowers you to make different choices.
Exactly. Informed choices about your habits.
Okay, so self-awareness through mindful tracking and journaling is step one, the foundation. What's the next key strategy for navigating this landscape? Next up is building resilience, specifically digital resilience. Our sources talk about this as the ability to adapt, cope with challenges, and bounce back from adverse online experiences.
Which is crucial because the online world does present specific difficulties.
Absolutely. Not just comparison and FOMO, but potential cyberbullying, misinformation, privacy issues, all the pressures we've discussed. Developing digital resilience means getting the skills to handle these effectively.
And these aren't skills we're necessarily born with. They need to be fostered. What strategies do the sources suggest?
Okay, one key strategy is fostering open communication, encouraging open, honest talk about online experiences, good and bad, without fear of judgment. This is vital for young people, but really true for all of us.
Creating a safe space to talk about it.
Yes. Talking about a hurtful comment or seeing something disturbing or just the stress of comparison, it allows these things to be processed, not just fester internally.
Makes sense. What else?
Another is actively teaching and developing critical thinking skills, specifically for online information and interactions. Helping yourself and others learn how to assess source credibility, recognize misinformation or manipulation like those heavily filtered images or biased stories.
Questioning what you see, basically.
Right. Not being cynical, just discerning. You can even role-play scenarios to practice evaluating online info.
Moving from passive consumption to active, critical engagement.
Exactly. Promoting empathy is also highlighted as crucial, both for building a healthier online environment and for your own resilience, encouraging consideration of how online words and actions affect others emotionally.
Remembering the human on the other side of the screen.
Yes. It helps build more positive online relationships, and it develops your ability to respond with compassion if you see someone else struggling or being targeted. Encouraging problem-solving skills is also vital. When faced with an online issue, guiding yourself or others through identifying the problem, brainstorming solutions, evaluating consequences. It builds confidence and agency.
Rather than feeling helpless.
Right. And finally, modeling resilience is incredibly important, especially for adults guiding younger people, but valuable peer-to-peer too. Sharing your own challenges, maybe a time you felt hurt by comparison or dealt with something upsetting online and talking about how you navigated it. Showing persistence, problem solving, keeping a positive mindset.
Showing it's okay to struggle and possible to work through it. Okay, so we have self-awareness, building digital resilience, then directly tackling that internal battle.
Which brings us to the core strategy linked back to self-acceptance, embracing imperfection and actively challenging negative self-talk. This is fundamental. The sources are clear. You have to let go of that relentless pursuit of perfectionism.
Easier said than done.
No, absolutely, but essential. Everyone, without exception, has flaws. Everyone makes mistakes, has failures, has moments they're not proud of. And those things do not fundamentally diminish your inherent worth as a person.
It sounds so simple when you say it, but letting go of that ingrained need to be perfect, especially when online culture screams perfect. It feels tough.
It is a process. It takes deliberate effort. You need to actively challenge that internal critic we talked about. This is where techniques from cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, are really useful, whether you do it with a therapist or through self-help resources.
How does that work practically?
It involves identifying those negative thought patterns like, I'm not as successful as them, or my life is boring compared to theirs. Then challenging their validity, asking, is that really true? What's the evidence?
Looking for counter evidence.
Exactly. Like, their online life is just highlights, I don't see the full picture. Or success isn't only what's posted online, and then reframing them into more balanced, realistic, or even positive thoughts.
So instead of automatically accepting the critic's judgment, you question it, dissect it.
Yes. And a crucial element here is practicing self-compassion. That idea, again, of treating yourself with the same kindness you'd offer a close friend.
How does that apply when you feel that comparison bang?
Okay, so you scroll past a perfect vacation photo. You feel that inadequacy flare up. Instead of letting the inner critic say, see, you'll never have that, you're a failure, you consciously activate self-compassion. You might think, okay, I'm feeling jealous right now. That's a tough feeling. It's okay. It's normal to compare sometimes. But I know that photo isn't the whole story. And my own life has value and joy, even if it's not posted online.
So you acknowledge the feeling kindly without letting it define you or your worth.
Exactly. That practice, offering yourself warmth and understanding, especially in those moments of perceived failure or when comparison bites hard, it significantly boosts your ability to accept yourself as you are, flaws and all.
Shifting from judgment to understanding. Okay. And finally, a very practical strategy, setting boundaries and fostering offline life.
Absolutely vital. Setting clear, conscious rules for your online behavior is key to taking back control. This isn't about being punitive. It's about establishing healthy limits that serve your well-being.
Like screen time limits.
That's a big one. Maybe using phone features or apps to help enforce them. Also being selective about the activities or content you engage with. Are there accounts that consistently trigger negative feelings? Maybe it's time to unfollow or mute them. Boundaries provide security. They create a framework for making conscious choices about your engagement, rather than just falling into mindless scrolling driven by habit or anxiety.
Intentionality, not just reactivity. And then the flip side, intentionally nurturing life away from the screen.
Precisely. Social media can become all-consuming if you let it. It's essential to actively engage in and prioritize hobbies, interests, physical activity, creative pursuits, and crucially, face-to-face social interactions. Real life stuff.
The things that provide a different kind of nourishment.
Fundamentally different, often more robust. These activities provide a necessary break from screen pressures. They build resilience, self-esteem, positive feelings in ways digital interactions just can't fully replicate. A genuine laugh with a friend, accomplishment after exercise, satisfaction from creating something. These ground you in reality. They connect you to yourself and others in ways likes and comments can't touch.
And you mentioned practicing self-awareness offline, too.
Yes. Notice how you feel during these offline activities, what truly brings you joy, what feels like authentic fun or connection. Noticing this helps reinforce the value of your real-life experiences, making them more compelling than the digital alternatives.
Okay, so we've explored the problem, the why, and these powerful strategies: self-awareness, resilience, self-acceptance, boundaries, offline life. But what does the actual research say works? When we try to intervene in social media use and its impact, our sources included a systematic review on this, right?
They did. A systematic review looking specifically at interventions designed to alter social media use and its effects on mental well-being in adults 18 and over. And it offered some interesting, cautious insights.
What did it find overall? Do interventions help?
It found some evidence, yes. Specifically, 39% of the studies included showed that social media use interventions did result in improved mental well-being outcomes.
Okay, so nearly 40% showed improvement. There's some signal that trying to change how we use social media can make a positive difference.
Yes, exactly. And it was particularly encouraging for depression. That was the most frequently studied outcome. And 70% of the studies that assessed depression show a significant improvement after participants went through some kind of social media intervention.
Wow, 70% improvement for depression. That's significant. Suggests these interventions can be quite impactful there. So given that, what types of interventions seem to work best?
Now this is where it gets really interesting. The review suggests that interventions based on therapeutic principles were by far the most effective.
Therapy-based, like using CBT or counseling techniques.
Exactly. Approaches that incorporate techniques like cognitive behavioral therapy or counseling. A striking 83% of the studies using these therapy-based methods showed an improvement in mental well-being outcomes.
83%. Compared to what for other methods?
Well, the contrast is stark. Interventions that focused simply on limiting social media use showed improvement in only 20% of studies. And those advocating for full abstinence, like a digital detox, only 25% showed improvement.
That is a massive difference.
Yeah.
Over 80% effectiveness for therapy-based versus like 20-25% for just cutting back time or detoxing. It really suggests it's not just about the quantity of time, is it?
It strongly supports that idea. These therapy-based approaches seem more effective because they don't just restrict behavior. They address the underlying thoughts, feelings, motivations connected to social media use.
They get at the why and how.
Exactly. They encourage mindfulness, reflection on how specific social media activity affects your internal state, thoughts, emotions, behaviors. They help you examine your relationship with the platforms. These methods also help individuals reevaluate life priorities, think about how social media fits into the bigger picture of well-being, and actively work on replacing negative online actions with structured goals and positive activities, often offline.
And they can directly tackle things like comparison thinking and FOMO.
Yes, they can explicitly incorporate strategies for challenging comparison thoughts and reducing FOMO by focusing attention and value on real-life experiences. It's a much deeper approach.
So it's not just cutting off the input, it's changing your internal processing of that input and building healthier internal habits. Therapy gets at that deeper level.
That seems to be the key difference, and the review authors offer some good reasons why simple restriction or abstinence might be less effective. One idea is that strict time limits might just lead users to intensify their use during the allowed time.
Like cramming for scrolling.
Potentially, yeah. Trying to squeeze it all in.
Yeah.
Another big factor is just the sheer difficulty of sticking to it. Adherence is tough.
Right.
The review mentioned one study where nearly 20%, 19.4% of participants dropped out because they simply couldn't manage to abstain from social media for more than 2 days straight.
Wow. That shows how hard simple restriction can be.
It really does. And if you can't adhere to the intervention, well, you're not going to see the benefits. The intervention has to be sustainable.
Makes perfect sense.
So this research really suggests that focusing only on reducing time online, while maybe part of a strategy, isn't as impactful in isolation as addressing the underlying why you use it the way you do and how it affects you psychologically. The therapy-based approaches, targeting thoughts, feelings, behaviors, seem more effective at making meaningful, maybe more lasting changes.
Now, while those findings about therapy-based approaches sound really compelling, the review also flagged some important limitations, right? We need to be cautious.
Yes, absolutely crucial point. It's not a solved issue. The overall quality of the studies in the review was generally low. A striking 96% got a weak score on quality assessment.
96% weak quality. That's almost all of them. Why?
The main reason was selection bias. Most studies relied heavily on convenient samples, often university students, participating for course credit or a small payment.
The usual suspects in psych research.
Pretty much, which means the results might not generalize well to all adults. Different ages, socioeconomic backgrounds, cultures, life stages. What works for university students might not work the same way for, say, a middle-aged parent or someone in a different cultural context.
So suggestive findings, but not necessarily universal.
Exactly. Also, most studies were very short-term, usually less than a month. So even when they saw positive effects, we don't know if those improvements last.
Do the benefits stick around?
We don't really know. Behavior change takes time. Only 2 studies in the whole review had a follow-up longer than a month. And like we said earlier, the broader evidence base is still conflicting overall. This review found positive signals, yes, especially for depression and therapy methods. But the field still has studies showing benefits and harms from social media.
Which points back to individual differences being really important.
Hugely important. Factors like gender, personality traits, pre-existing mental health conditions, and this concept of digital resilience, a person's ability to cope with negative online stuff, these can all influence how social media affects someone.
The review mentioned a gender difference.
Yeah. One study found abstinence benefited women's positive feelings and life satisfaction, but not men's, suggesting gender might play a role in how interventions work for different people.
Fascinating. It's definitely not one size fits all.
Not at all. And the type of use might matter to passive scrolling versus active engagement, but even that research is mixed. We need more nuance, looking at the actual content and nature of interactions. Basically, we need more rigorous, larger, longer-term studies with diverse groups before we have definitive answers.
Okay, so pulling all this together, the real problem of comparison stress, the vulnerabilities, the strategies, the initial research findings, how do we integrate this picture? It sounds like it's way more nuanced than just delete your apps or use it less.
It is absolutely not about just unplugging entirely. The sources acknowledge that's not realistic or even beneficial for everyone today. Connections, networks, information are online. The goal isn't always avoidance. It's about developing conscious, mindful, selective engagement.
It sounds like the sources point to a layered approach, combining strategies.
That's precisely the picture, a multi-pronged strategy. Building that foundational self-awareness mindfulness online, journaling helps you understand your triggers, your feelings, your patterns. Knowing your internal landscape is step one.
Knowing how that perfect post actually makes you feel.
Yes. Then, actively applying resilience skills helps you navigate the inevitable online challenges feeling left out. Seeing upsetting content, misinformation, criticism gives you coping tools. And actively working on self-acceptance builds that robust inner foundation. Makes you less reliant on external validation, less damaged by curated lives online. Your worth comes from within.
So your self-esteem isn't held hostage by likes.
Exactly. Setting clear boundaries gives you structure, control, and crucially, prioritizing and engaging in your offline life provides essential balance and different sources of well-being, connection, accomplishment, joy that digital life can't fully replace.
The real stuff. Face-to-face, passions, moving your body, nature.
Yes. And finally, the research highlights that therapy-based approaches, professional help, or even self-guided resources using CBT principles offer structured, effective ways to address those deeper thoughts and behaviors driving problematic use and comparison. They help change your fundamental relationship with social media and yourself.
It really sounds like a continuous journey, doesn't it? Not a problem you just solve.
It absolutely is. The journey of self-acceptance, learning to navigate the digital world authentically, it's not a destination. It's an ongoing process. It needs patience, perseverance, and a lot of self-compassion, especially when you slip up, fall back into old habits, get pulled into the performance.
Which will happen.
It will happen. But consistently engaging in these strategies, awareness, resilience, acceptance, boundaries, nurturing real life, it transforms your relationship not just with social media, but with yourself and the world in really positive ways over time.
So what does this deep dive really tell us then? About escaping the stress of online comparison, about truly being yourself. It's much more than just spending less time online, although, sure, that might be part of it for some.
Fundamentally, it's about strengthening your relationship with yourself.
Yeah. Building awareness of how online spaces make you feel. Actively challenging that often loud inner critic that gets fueled by comparison. Choosing, again and again, to embrace who you are, your authentic, imperfect, multifaceted self, and consciously deciding where and how you invest your energy, both online and, crucially, in your real lived life.
And those therapy-based approaches, self-compassion, mindful reflection, they emerge as really powerful tools in that process.
It's about shifting the source of your validation, your worth, from that external, constantly shifting digital scroll.
To a stable internal foundation built on self-acceptance.
Right. And that leaves us with a thought to consider as we wrap up this deep dive. If social media mostly shows just the highlights, the curated, filtered, often unrealistic reels, and we know comparing our messy reality to those highlights is a direct path to stress and feeling inadequate. Then maybe the most authentic, the most rebellious, the most self-honoring act you can do in the face of all that pressure is to occasionally, intentionally share something real, something imperfect, or maybe even just log off completely for a while to fully inhabit and nurture the beautiful, imperfect, complicated reality of your own life. What would it look like for you listening to actively choose self-acceptance and genuine presence over seeking validation in that digital crowd.